Chapter 7 of Deliver Me from Eva by Paul Bailey. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. Chapter 7. Eva was sweet, gracious, but firm in her protests.
"I don't want to leave Thalamus,"
she declared, emphatically shaking her head.
"And surely you like it a little bit."
In decisive earnestness, we eyed one another across the table. One moment of the wistful hope written upon her face, and I began feeling like a bully and a blackguard. I turned away before her tenderness and charm melted every weapon I possessed. "Of course I like Thalamus. You've searched the earth to make it desirable to me. Somehow you've anticipated my every want. It's a dream of beauty." I dropped my fork and stared dismally at my plate.
"Then, my boy, don't change," Dr. Kramer counseled. "These acres have been Eva's home since childhood. The land in its very setting will be for you a spot of perpetual joy."
"And that," I argued, "is precisely why we must go away. There's an unholy spell about this place that seems to weave itself upon you. Like a fly in the silken web of a spider. You're soon its prisoner."
"My children are not prisoners."
"Of a sort," I stubbornly affirmed. The big bald head was deliberately laughing at me.
"My children have seen the world. They have learned most of what it has to offer. Osmond starts his concert tour soon. Eva herself was traveling when you met her. In light of such evidence, how can you honestly make such a statement?"
"Just the same, they are prisoners."
"Not such a bad place to be confined,"
Osmond suggested. I turned my impatience and anger upon him. "You're beginning to find it irksome," I declared. "Irksome because the world is suddenly intruding upon you. A hint of it was given in this room tonight."
"So? To who are they prisoners?" asked Dr. Kraner in bland, soft voice. "And for what cause?"
"They're prisoners to you," I growled, "and it's for you to answer why and for what cause." Before either the doctor or his children could interrupt, I commenced arguing my thesis in calmer tone. "In spite of every cultural and educational advantage you've so generously bestowed upon your children, they're so hopelessly bound to this place that the rest of the world might well never exist. For them, these Pasadena acres constitute the center of the universe."
"True," Dr. Kraner agreed, turning studious attention to his food. "It could be the center, you know."
"Well, as for Eva, I married her, not this. I'm able to provide comforts not unbecoming such a lady. My desire is to take my wife out into the world, where she can be seen, admired, and known. I love her, Doctor. Believe me, it is for the good of both of us that I say these things."
"Well put," Osmond sighed. "Very well put." "Mark," Eva said, smiling proudly, "if I'm a prisoner, my bonds are not hard to bear, because they're bonds of love, for my family, for my home, for the humanity we serve, and now, most of all, for you."
I was bested. For a moment I ate in dumb silence. I wondered now if it wasn't jealousy instead of protective impulse that had brought my voice to bear so violently on my first meal with the family I'd married into. Surreptitiously I glanced at Dr. Kraner, calmly bending his great head to his food. Castleman motioned Inza, the imbecile housemaid, to my side. As I accepted from her silver tray another warm roll, I might, under conditions less worrisome, have found her worthy of more careful observation. She was neat, well-formed physically, and would have been considered pretty were she possessed of normal faculties. But in my tone of thought she was only one more frightful and sinister part of the Kraner ménage. And yet it could be that all things were frightful and sinister until understood. Perhaps the work of Dr. Kraner was on the high plane his children claimed for it. Perhaps all of them were motivated by the ennobling traits of selflessness and sacrifice which have marked humanitarians and heroes since the world began. Perhaps it was me who was the selfish bigot, wrapped and tied in my own love for this woman, begrudging any part of her that might go to brighten another's path. For a minute I hesitated before the plunge. I knew then how brave was the man who freely admits his errors. "I'm wrong," I apologized to the doctor, "and sorry." A triumphant smile lighted his face.
"As one of us, you'll know better."
"And you'll like us better," Osmond said. Perhaps Father will tell you of himself and his work."
"Quite obviously you are a man of rare attainments," I said in my most conciliatory tone, "and your children likewise."
"We're all scientists, my boy, engaged in a strange and interesting work. Although barely on the trail, the things we've already discovered are wondrous and far-reaching. As one of the family, we had all hoped you might enter with us in this most unique quest, for assuredly we have the key that will release man to wonders undreamed."
"From what Osmond and Eva have told," I agreed, "the whole thing has an impelling interest. But naturally I must decline being a part of it. I have my practice at law, which is my first and foremost concern. And since Eva has seen fit to marry me, I shall expect her to relinquish a great deal, if not all, her active participation in your experiments, Dr. Craner."
"My husband," Eva charmingly verified, "wants to make me less a scientist and more a wife."
Dr. Craner's dark eyes probed me like searchlights.
"The only answer," he said, "is to make Mark Allard one of us."
"That may be difficult," I prophesied. Osmond leaned back while Inza, under Castleman's patient direction, cleared away his dinner plate.
"For the benefit of Mark's obstinacy, Father, why not tell him a little bit of your personal history?"
"Do," I said. "I'd love to hear it." The doctor nodded his head in ready agreement.
"As a human being," he began, "I was beaten by life at the start. Doubtless I must appear peculiar to you, as to all men, for nature has denied me ears and lower limbs. My parents were unknown to me. One can hardly blame them for abandoning at birth the grotesque dwarf they'd conceived and ushered into the world. I was the despised, neglected, hidden waif of a foundling home, displayed only with apology, exhibited only as a spawn of oddity, hating, like a cornered beast, those self-sure beings before whom I was shown with such abject apology. Until I was 12, I'd never known the experience of sound. The grunts and droolings of an animal were the only sounds within my capabilities to utter. All the innate intelligence of my natural endowment with its mental gifts and human possibilities were entombed and locked in the inarticulate brain and freakish body which became my issue at birth. Strangely, it was a woman who saved me, an unmarried, ordinary, and unassuming female doctor of naturopathy, ignored by the medical world, anything but prosperous in her practice. I cannot divulge her name, but in honesty I must acknowledge her greatness. She saw me at my age of 12. She asked for me, and the asylum was happy enough to relinquish my care to her. My birth as a human dated from the historic hour I met her. I looked at the doctor with new sense of understanding. "And this old woman voluntarily took you into her home?" "Please don't misunderstand me," he said. "This kindly soul, while plain of face and likely considered a spinster, was at that time scarcely 30 years of age. Her office was half of a 2-family flat in Chicago. The time for me dates from the hour I was delivered into this woman's care. Remember, I could not hear. No attempt had ever been made to teach me lip-reading, and my guttural sounds were incomprehensible as words. But as I said before, fate had delivered me into the hands of a woman of great faith and persistence. Her first and greatest chore was to teach me to speak. And because she succeeded, the minutiae of my first tiny world of sensory perception has grown until I am determined it shall encompass the universe. Out of her slender resources, she hired a tutor in sign language. All her instincts as a woman were unselfishly focused upon me. And for the first time I learned what it was to be wanted. Of necessity, my first progress was slow. She taught me lip-reading with such patient thoroughness that, if this breast microphone were suddenly disconnected, I could look into any one of your faces and know what was being said. At night she would read to me, and by watching her face, the world of print became known to me. Always she experimented to bring the lost world of sound into my life. The old tin-horned gramophone was played directly into my face one day. I heard nothing whatever until she deliberately laid the big metal horn against my cheek. Instantly, the pulsating rhythm of music was transmuted to my brain by bone conduction, and my smile of pleasure brought tears of joy to her eyes. After that happy discovery she daily would prop me up, and hour after hour I would play and replay the records with my head shoved deep into the horn. The greater revelation, however, came the day I accidentally clamped my teeth on the horn's edge, in my frantic hunger for the music's full enjoyment. Wonder of wonders! I truly heard for the first time. Full exploitation of this accidental discovery did not come until much later, when I designed my own equipment. My dessert lay forgotten and untouched as I listened to Dr. Craner's tale, and I watched with dull lack of interest while Castleman led Inza from the table. "Pardon me, Dr. Craner," I said, "did you have none of the natural part of the ear, like the drums or sensory conveyances?" "There were no openings whatever in my head." I gaped at the man in fresh wonder. "Those metal devices you now wear, you say they're your own invention and design?" "I have tapped the sphenoidal bones, connecting them by vibrating plunges to the tiny solenoids either side of my head. These in turn are actuated electrically by the microphone and amplifier I wear at all times." "Your astonishing knowledge of medicine. Did you gain it all from this woman?" "You understand, of course," the doctor explained in quiet and confidential tone, "that such things as naturopathy, spinal therapy, and faith healing are more or less the stepchildren of medicine. The orthodox medical world is unhappy about them and would obliterate them if they could. But someday, necessity itself will force some arrogant medics to accept their stepchildren into the fold and to recognize their indubitable merits. Psychiatry, for instance, took up where medicine had stopped in utter futility, and psychiatry, scorned and towed around for decades, at last has been accepted by all progressive schools of medicine and utilized as a science to the great gain of man. This woman, skilled in her own way, taught me all she knew, and kindled in me a desire for all other forms of healing knowledge. Above all, I learned from her never to scoff at anything I do not understand, that the truly scientific mind is open to all evidence. I became an insatiable student. Naturally, I am not recognized as a practicing physician. The unorthodox source of my knowledge and my own physical limitations preclude that. But, measured against the broad scope of man's need, such things as that are trivial and incidental. My therapy, almost perfected and soon to be demonstrated, will astonish and revolutionize all conceivable forms of healing. It deals directly with the source flow of both life and intelligence, and against its exalted concepts, the present science of medicine will appear as puerile and archaic as alchemy and astrology. My unnamed woman served greater than she knew." "Why unnamed?" I asked. "I'd think you'd be proud to shout her name from the housetops." "Proud, yes," he said, "but there's reason enough for not doing so." "Then she's alive?" Dr. Craner narrowed his long-lashed eyes. He glanced at the silent Eva and Osman, as though for mental approval. "The woman is dead," he said. "To us she is dead." I knew my mind was sucking like a sturgeon on a river's floor, but in the strange and murky waters through which I now was swimming, a new and enticing channel was suddenly opening itself to view. I took one of Osman's proffered cigarettes and bent to his light. "If that be the case, Doctor," I persisted, "then why not let the world know of this splendid example of love and sacrifice?" "The time is not yet," Craner quietly replied. "But since you're one of us, I'll take my risk in being frank." He looked steadily at me. I felt my heart's beat accelerate. "That woman was my wife," he said. "Your wife?" I gasped. "You mean—" "Yes, the mother of my children." I puffed nervously. I glanced at Osman and then at Eva. Both looked downward at my scrutiny. I'd blundered into a family secret, and yet, the more I thought of the legless physician, the more exciting became the mystery. My sudden look at the doctor brought an almost imperceptible flush to his face. But I couldn't help it. My imagination was hitting a riotous pace. "I know what you're thinking, my son," he said, fumbling with his spoon. "And it's true I was malformed in other ways besides hearing and locomotion.
This woman shrewdly noticed, as the years passed, that her odd prodigy was traveling through puberty's phase, with the usual signs and manifestations of manhood's change. Being a woman of uncommon understanding and rare courage, she later took to herself that which otherwise might have been denied her. Dr. Craner tapped the spoon thoughtfully. She proved a good mother. At that point my imagination had leaped propriety's bounds. I had heard of artificial insemination, of its widespread use in the field of stock breeding, and its advocacy in the field of eugenics, but this was my first example in the sphere of human affairs. My Ava, her talented brother, were they test-tube babies, both? And yet, why not? Who dared say the world had not gained by the wonder? I dared not look at them. The surprises of my marriage appeared endless. But even a legal mind scarcely had right to pry into the modus operandi of these conceptions. Osmond explained a little of your cranial therapy, I said in an effort to break the awkward silence. I'm wildly anxious to know more about it. The doctor beamed happily at my show of interest. I can better describe it over a model, he replied. Would you care to go with me to the atelier? I can show you better there. I'd love to. We'll all go, Ava quickly suggested. Castleman, the doctor called. My wheels, please. Castleman appeared at the door immediately, not clearly hearing the request. With its repeat, he bowed respectfully, turned, and walked from the room. For a servant, I said, crushing out my cigarette, he's quite a remarkable man. He's more than a servant, my son. Those who serve menially for me. I froze in horror at the sound. Like an aching cry from the eternally damned, the house suddenly was filled with the most ghastly series of screeches and moans ever to bedevil the human ear. Merciful God! I cried amidst the tumult. What is it? I had leaped to my feet as though gored in the buttocks. Inza, Ava said, rising. The sound had a human quality, though they more closely resembled the half-bark, half-howl of a demented dog. My spine pimpled, my breath caught in terror. You mean that maid? I whispered. The girl who waited on table a moment ago? She has spells, Ava replied. The doctor calmly nodded to Osmond. Dropping his napkin to the table, and with a final draw on his cigarette, Osmond rose. Sounds like Castleman will need you this time, the doctor said. Osmond hurried out. I waited, standing, while the noise painfully dwindled to silence. End of Chapter 7.